My name is Ron Trent, producer, DJ, musician. Been in this for a long time, I guess now. Got a couple of gray hairs. So, yeah, just continuing to play the music that I feel and continue to make the music that I'm inspired to make, you know. First contact with electronic music, well, I would have to say that it'd probably be like the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, you know, the likes of everything from Kraftwerk to your Emmanuel Gothing, Ashra Temple stuff, and some of the more experimental stuff that was actually coming from, this doesn't sound strange, but actually Herb Alpert was a interesting player in some of the more experimental electronic stuff that I was hearing. I've always been attracted to the organic and the electronic meeting each other. So moving forward out of that, you know, coming up in Chicago and being one of the city kids that helped coin what's called deep house today. You know, house music was the thing, you know, and you know, we created house music out of being inspired from what Frankie and Ron Hardy were playing, you know. As we call it, house music today, or as it was back then, was more, it was a freedom music, and it comes from the underground ethos. Techno in Detroit has its own, you know, personality and perspective, and then, you know, I mean, we recreated the prescription sound out of Detroit. We recorded all that in Detroit. But, you know, Detroit has got its own story, you know, and, you know, it goes all the way from Motown up to where it is today. But the large part of the influences were from Chicago, because Derek May and Kevin and all these guys used to go hear Ron Hardy and Frankie Knuckles. You know, so it's connected, but it's its own narrative. Basically, prescription, I mean, from the onset of when we started, it was the idea of creating a sophisticated, sophisticated, melodic, experimental, medicinal sound, you know. Now, of course, that can go a lot of different directions or whatever, but, you know, it was the idea of experimentation, and it was the idea of soul, and you know, utilizing the electronics and the innovation of the big studios we were working in to create another dimension of sound, and that's what we did. I'm constantly, you know, trying to figure out ways to be more creative. Of course, I got my own way you know, that I create. I still create with constant innovation. You know, before, back in the day, it was a 909 and 808 type stuff. You know, the idea is being able to utilize that technology to articulate your creative ideas, and being able to, you know, kind of navigate through the equipment that's out there now. But if you're somebody who's being really creative, you're a musician, you know, you want to figure out the best way to be able to get this stuff out of your head. And sometimes going through the electronics or having all this can be a little, you know, like, whoa, hey, you know, so virtual that, you know, the mind is not necessarily, you know, kicking in on how to exactly extract that from the equipment that's in front of you. But, you know, I think the best thing is to work with whatever equipment you have that best suits you. That suits your personality, you know what I mean? So, you know, so it's objective. people seem to be more interested in the technology than they are the soul of the music, which is how this got started. Nothing grows without the soul. So I hope that the soul, that they know that they will study the content, right? And then move from there and not just study the electronic equipment that they have in front of their face, which allows them to have accessibility. But in terms of a new scene or whatever, I think that Chicago is, still working on that. You know what I mean? Classics and disco and this kind of thing that's becoming largely popularized now is something that's been around for a long time in Chicago. People are just kind of catching on to it in a certain sense, because we grew up like that, and I played all through the 80s like that, you know what I mean? But now a new generation is like catching on to what's going on, and it's elevating, the culture, which is cool. But, Chicago still got some more growing to do.